I broke up with my ex-fiancé. Her family blame me for her death. Hey guys, I need some serious advice as I'm pretty much being cornered by basically everyone and I really don't know what else to do as my mental state is declining and I'm left wondering if it's really all my fault. A little background. I and my ex-fiancé had been together for almost 6 years and engaged for 4 out of those 6 years. I was introduced to her by a close friend at a party and we just clicked. She was attractive, had a great personality and had similar hobbies as me which made it perfect. Back in April of this year, I started noticing little changes in her. She started wearing more revealing clothes to work, started putting on more makeup and etc. I had no problem with any of that stuff as it's her body. She can wear whatever and put on however much makeup she wanted to, but what made things worse for me was when she started coming home late from work or how instead of spending the weekend off with me, we both had weekends off from work. She instead was always going out. I once asked her why she never invited me to come out with her, to which she replied that it was only a girls' night out and that her other friends would not be happy if I tagged along as they were not bringing their own boyfriends with them. It all came crashing down when I had a huge fight in June with her because she decided that instead of going out on a date with me she told me how she already had made plans with her friends and that it was rude of her to cancel. That was it for me. I blew up at her and we had a huge fight which resulted in her packing her bags and leaving. I didn't hear from her for almost a week. None of her friends knew where she was and heck none of her folks even knew what was going on until she finally contacted me and wanted to talk. Imagine my surprise when she confessed to me that there was another guy involved and how all this time she was hanging out with him when all this time she was lying to me about hanging with her friends. I blew up. I wanted nothing to do with her and was going to break up with her until she got on her knees and begged me to give her a second chance, which my dumbass self did, but only after she revealed everything to me, and she did. It made me sick to my stomach, but in the end, I forgave her and told her to delete all contact with the other guy and that I expect her to have no contact with him going forward, which she promised, and things kinda went back to how they were. Heck, we were even spending more time together, but that feeling, that trust wasn't there anymore. Everything was kinda okay until 2 weeks ago a friend of mine who was visiting another city which was 3 hours from where I lived sent me a picture with the message "Sorry bro," that broke my already broken heart into a billion of little pieces. The picture was of my ex-fiancé at a mall 3 hours away from where we lived holding hands with some stranger who I didn't know. I broke down. I was heartbroken. She was a piece of crap, especially since I thought she was at work while in reality she was 3 hours away holding hands with her lover. When I got home from work I waited for her and right away confronted her, which she denied and called me a psycho for not believing her and that I was a piece of crap for not trusting her until I showed her the picture that my friend sent me. Her face told me everything, and when the waterworks started I knew that I had made a huge mistake in taking her back, so I ended it. She cried and begged me to think it over and not to throw away everything that we have together, which made me angry. I told her to pack her things and leave, called her parents and mine and told them everything. Her parents came to help her and I told them to basically leave after they told me to think it over and to make the right decision before actually ending it. She begged me not to end things, but I did, had to, for my own peace of mind. I did not hear from her or her parents until 3 days ago when my parents called me to let me know that my ex-fiancé had committed suicide. Her parents found her hanging and she had left a letter apologizing to everyone including my parents and me, and how she is sorry from the bottom of her heart for what she did to me and that how she can't live without me and because of that she ended it. I am at a loss. Ex-fiancé friends and family are blaming me and my own mother told me that it was my fault. She told me that I should have forgiven her since I'm clearly worth committing suicide over. I am disgusted. I have currently taken some time off from work and have not a single clue what to do. My husband is a robot. I don't know how to help him. The title sounds insane, but here I go. We've been married for 6 years and have 2 kids. I'm pregnant with a third. My husband works from 9 to 5, comes home, does his chores, plays with our 2 kids, talks to me for a little bit, and then goes to sleep. But he doesn't seem to enjoy doing any of it. This whole thing is one big chore. He used to be this goofy guy who smiled and told jokes all the time, but I haven't seen the man smile in months. It's not like he's neglecting his duties as a husband and father, but he acts like it's just that, duties. Like hanging with the kids and me is a second job. I'm grateful for all he's doing, and he makes all of our lives so much easier, but it's like he's constantly on the clock and I think he might be depressed. I tried asking him if he was doing okay and he tells me he was doing fantastic, but I know he was not. That's the line he uses at work when customers try to make small talk and ask how he's doing. He doesn't take any time for himself. He doesn't take any breaks, he stopped playing games and stopped watching TV. He just does what I feel he thinks needs to be done and I don't know how to help him out. Our bedroom life has become one-sided. We do it frequently but only because I initiate frequently. Even if he doesn't seem in the mood he'll do it. Like it's his responsibility to make me happy. It feels like he isn't there in the moment, like his mind is wandering the whole time we're intimate, and that, to me, feels worse than getting rejected. I don't know what's going on, and I don't know how to help because he won't let me in. To anybody else, he seems fine, but I know something is wrong and I don't know how to fix this. I miss my husband, the guy who complained and told jokes. Not this robotic shell that looks like him. He comes home from work in a couple of hours and I'm going to sit him down and talk to him. I'm going to tell him how I feel, and I hope that together we can find a solution that turns him back into the man he once was. The Redditor responds a few days later. Hey everybody, here's the update. I wrote this a couple of days ago but couldn't post it because it was too soon. My husband came home at around 6 o'clock, and after he had something to eat I took him to the bedroom to talk. I sat him down on the bed and told him I was worried about him. I didn't know exactly how to phrase my worries, so I just showed him my original post. When he finished reading the post he started crying, full on crying. In all the years that I have known this man, I had never seen a tear roll down his eye. I held him for a few minutes until he could recompose himself, and he told me everything. He told me that the world was in a shitty place right now and that we were bringing a child into a stressful time. He said when I became pregnant he felt he had to step up. He needed to take care of things because it was his responsibility. He said that the weight of carrying the family was so much harder than he anticipated, so he thought if he doubled down he could get through it. But the more he tried the darker the tunnel got and eventually he couldn't see an end. He said that he feels like he's constantly drowning, and the only breath of fresh air is on the car ride between home and work. He said that sometimes the stress is so much that he throws up, but doesn't tell anyone and instead keeps going with his day. He then pulled out a pack of gum from his pocket and said this was for when it happens. I asked him why he couldn't tell me any of this, and he said he didn't want to burden me with the truth. He said that he thought if he told me everything, I would stop seeing him as a protector and provider, and that I would inevitably stop loving him. Hearing him say that brought tears to my eyes because I didn't know where he got the notion I would feel that way. I asked him if he wanted to quit his job, but surprisingly he said the job doesn't bother him. He said the work in itself was fine. It's just now he feels an added weight to provide because not only was he fortunate enough to keep his job during the pandemic, but we also had a kid on the way. He said that some days he feels like packing a suitcase and running to some tropical island for a week and not telling anyone. But then he feels guilty and doubles down even more. I told him that maybe he should go on a trip. I said that he deserved a break, and maybe if he did exactly that he'd feel better. He tried to protest, but I insisted. In the end said that he'll only go if we go together. Like a romantic getaway between spouses. Once things start to clear up and before the baby is due, he wants to take a week off from work, drop the kids off at grandma's house and have us go on a vacation. Just the two of us, like we used to when we first got married. He also said he wants to take the day off tomorrow and just sleep in, so that's the plan. I'll call his boss tomorrow and say that he's sick and can't come in. It's not like they'll make a sick man come to work. There's a pandemic going on. Right now he's playing with the kids and it doesn't feel like he's doing one of his chores. He actually seems to be enjoying himself. For the first time in months, I don't see the robot, I see my husband. My son and his friend are a couple. How do I let them know it's okay? Hello Reddit. Please bear with me regarding my formatting and things. I have read the rules and things, but I'm an old fart who is rather on the wrong side of 40, so I'm not overly well versed in the art of efficient interneting. My boy is 20 years old. He's absolutely my pride and joy, and there is nothing he could do that would ever make me love him less. For the first half of his life, I regrettably wasn't involved very much. His mother and I parted ways when he was just a few months old, and at the time I was struggling with heroin addiction and was absolutely not as present in his life as I should have been, nor was I suited to fatherhood at all. I saw him, at most, 2 to 3 times a year for the first 12 years of his life. I won't discuss details because that's his private story to tell, but when he was 12 he revealed to me that he was being badly mistreated at the hands of his mother and her boyfriend. Despite not being the best father at the time, I didn't want my boy suffering anymore, so I got myself cleaned up and sorted out in order to get full custody of him. I've effectively been a single, and sober, father ever since, and he has little to no contact with his mother. He's everything a man could want his son to be. He's uniquely kind and fiercely loyal, he's unflinchingly brave, he's incredibly generous and, despite the horrors he suffered as a child, he's unfailingly positive and sunny to the last. Somehow I of all people was bestowed with the honor of watching him grow from a sweet young boy to the greatest man I have ever known. I cannot stress enough my pride in him. When he was 18, he got accepted into a top-ranking university on the other side of the country. I was sad to see him go, but simultaneously overjoyed that he got into his first choice and was starting a new chapter in his life. He comes home once every other month, and on the months he doesn't come home, I go to visit him. He's doing well in uni, has made lots of friends and seems incredibly happy there, which I'm obviously chuffed about. Since his second year, he's lived with his friend in a flat off campus. I've strongly suspected since his early teens that my son is gay, and I now more or less have confirmation that this is true and that his friend is actually his boyfriend. So, for this COVID-19 faff, my son decided he'd rather come home and quarantine at mine than stay at his uni flat. His friend, however, would be left alone if my son came back, as his Sandian and his family are back over there, and I gather he doesn't have the best relationship with them anyway. He asked if it would be okay if a friend tagged along to my house, and I said, of course, no problem. They've been back at mine for about 6 weeks now. They think they're being subtle, I know, but I've caught them doing a couple of things on several occasions now. The friend has slipped up a couple of times and called my son babe and sweetie in front of me, which I pretended not to notice for the sake of saving embarrassment. There have been nights where we'll be watching a film with the lights off and, thinking I can't see, my son will have his arm around the friend. One day I walked into the lounge and I'm positive they'd just been kissing and were trying to cover it, though I admit I have no confirmation on that one. The most solid evidence, however, came a few mornings ago. I get up very early to go for runs in the morning, hence why I'm making a Reddit post at 5 in the morning, haha. As far as I was told, my son was sleeping in his childhood room and his friend was in the guest room. I don't know what possessed me to do so, but on Tuesday morning I cracked my son's door open to check on him as I used to when he was a kid. Lo and behold, they are both asleep, snuggled up together, in my son's bed. That's more or less solidified for me that they're together. I didn't say anything, just shut the door and went for my run, and I haven't mentioned it to them yet. What I want advice on is this: how do I let my son and his boyfriend know that I'm okay with them being a couple and they don't have to feel like they have to sneak around in my house? I want them to be comfortable here and I want them to know I support them both no matter what. Or is that not a good idea? Am I better off leaving it alone and waiting until they tell me themselves if they ever do? I obviously don't want to force either of them out of the closet, but at the same time, I hate feeling as if they feel like they're being forced into the closet in my house. What's my best course of action here? The Redditor posted back with an update a few days later. My son was busy with some assignments both for his freelancing job and his uni work most of the day, and I didn't want to disturb him, so I waited until after dinner to chat. Friend went to have a bath while my son and I watched the telly. I told him face to face, son, I love you very much. You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to, but I want you and, friend, to feel comfortable being yourselves in my house, and you don't ever need to hide anything from me, alright? Well, it turns out a hell of a lot of you were right. Sun burst out laughing and said, "Oh thank God, I reckoned you'd clicked on but didn't say anything because I didn't want to make you feel weird." Basically, we've each been pussyfooting around the topic because neither one of us wanted to make the other uncomfortable talking about it. We had a bit of a chat and he confirmed that I'm right in thinking they've been together since their first year of uni and that's why they moved in together in the second year. However, apparently, I'm not as brilliant and intuitive as I thought because apparently one of his friends in secondary school was his boyfriend for a year and I had absolutely no idea, haha. He went and talked to the boyfriend after his bath, and then we all had a bit of a further chat. Sadly, a lot of you were right that the reason the boyfriend doesn't have a good relationship with his parents is that he came out to them a few years ago and they effectively disowned him, so I made sure he knows that he's a part of our family now. Sorry if that isn't all as exciting and groundbreaking as some of you had hoped, haha. I'm glad this is something my boy no longer feels he has to keep from me and I'm very glad he's happy with his partner. Thank you all again for the help. Wife had been flirting with her coworker. She said she would stop but it just happened again. My wife and I have been married for slightly more than 3 years now. Last Christmas, I found she had been having a long conversation with a coworker of hers, in which they talked about having seen each other multiple times and that they couldn't wait for the next one. The guy said he was going to book a hotel near their office right after Christmas. In this conversation, when he said he was looking forward to seeing my wife, she would reply with things like "I'm looking forward to much more than just seeing you," etc. You get the idea. Overly flirty. When I confronted my wife, she denied the conversation existed. After deleting it, she showed me her phone to prove it didn't exist. But I had taken a few pictures. She then said it was all virtual and that they never did anything physical. To prove she was right, she messaged her coworker, in front of me, asking if he had booked the hotel, and he replied not yet. She then asked if he was really expecting them to meet, to which he replied negatively. She promised they would never talk again and I agreed, simply because I love her a lot and wanted to trust her, but in my mind, I wasn't completely sure she had been honest. For a few weeks, I must admit I checked her phone a few too many times, so she changed her password, which I was fine with because I was probably being too paranoid. This week, I picked her phone up because I needed a code that had been sent to her phone number. I didn't even need to unlock the screen to get it. To my surprise, under the message with the code, there were other messages from the same guy. One of them was an audio, the second one was a shirtless photo of himself in front of a mirror, and the third one said sweaty and a few emojis with the tongue. I confronted her since she had promised they wouldn't talk ever again and she said he just wanted to show her he was going to the gym to show progress. But that the rest of the times they talk it's just about work, and that this is just a coincidence. I asked her to show me the rest of their messages but she said she had mistakenly deleted their conversation history. My wife says she's going to change this time and that I never really forgave her and that's why she kept talking to the guy. She says this time she's really going to stop but I have a hard time believing it. Or even if she does stop, I fear when things don't go so well between us she'll do it again. I really love her but can't keep living like this. Is there any situation in which this can work? What would you do? The Redditor responds a few days later. This is a tough pill to swallow, and I can't say I hadn't been warned. This is my previous post. Many folks asked me to follow up with an update so here it is, fresh from the oven. After reading every single comment of the Reddit post, my brain just couldn't overcome the catastrophe and the collapse of the world I had built for me in which my wife is my love, my best friend and partner, as well as the person I admire the most. She was entirely perfect and made me happy for many years. I thought no couple in the world could have what we had. We were both very happy for a long time. We were both attractive, we were inherently good, had big hearts and were individually wildly successful in our careers. After the Reddit post, I moved to an Airbnb and eventually with family to think things through. It was a terrible time but a psychologist helped me recover from a terrible mental state. It coincided with the pandemic hitting very hard in my city. I caught the virus, which didn't help. During this time, we kept talking and my wife was very sorry and continued saying they hadn't met. I knew it wasn't true but was willing to forgive the woman of my dreams, who continued being in the highest altar of my universe. Fast forward to last Saturday morning, I went back to our place, ready to forgive her and talk things through in the most mature way possible. And well, there she was, but I was the one who received the biggest surprise, to say the least. The guy was in my house naked, and so was my wife. The guy from the messages, the guy from the pics. The one she said she didn't even like. I caught him hiding in my bathroom as my wife was putting her pajamas on. When I saw him hiding in my bathroom, he uttered, "Sorry dude." For a second I asked myself, is this where I kill him? But I instantly replied, I got nothing against you because the guy was just nailing this hot woman. Even if he was doing so in a house full of pictures of me. Pictures of our wedding and our families. Pictures of my dead father would be so sad to see how the marriage he never witnessed was going to end. He has always been the reason I try to make the world a better place. He passed away 2 months before our wedding. I'm sorry. I still love her to death. But I understand enough is enough. Even if my world collapses, I hope I can build a new one without lies and in which I'm not just a blind believer under an altar of a fake god.